strange sound heard by people all over the world. Low, constant, impossible to locate. Described as an engine idling in the distance, electrical buzzing, or deep vibrations beneath the ground. And strangest of all, many people standing in the exact same place hear absolutely nothing. So what is causing this hum? My friends, you're going to like this one. For decades, people across the world have reported hearing a mysterious low-frequency sound, now known simply as the hum. The phenomenon has appeared in places as distant as England, Canada, Australia, and the United States. In some cases, investigators eventually traced the sound to industrial equipment or environmental sources. But in other locations, despite years of scientific study, no clear explanation was ever found. And this is where things start to get a little strange, because the people hearing the hum often describe nearly identical experiences, even when separated by thousands of miles. The reports themselves are remarkably consistent. Most hearers describe a deep droning sound that becomes especially noticeable at night when the world grows quiet. Some compare it to a diesel engine left running outside the house. Others describe vibrations, throbbing pressure, or a low mechanical rumble that never fully stops. And while the sound may seem subtle at first, many people say it slowly becomes impossible to ignore. This is where the real mystery begins. Because unlike an ordinary sound, the hum doesn't affect everyone equally. In most reported cases, only a small percentage of people living in the same area can hear it at all. Family members sleeping in the same house often have completely different experiences. One person hears a constant droning noise every night, while another hears absolutely nothing. The phenomenon is easy to describe but starts to become difficult to explain. Because if the hum was simply an external noise source, investigators would expect everyone nearby to hear it. But again and again, that doesn't happen. In fact, researchers estimate that only around 2% of people in affected areas can detect the sound. Most are middle-aged or older adults, although younger witnesses have also reported hearing it. And despite years of study, scientists still cannot fully explain why some people hear the hum while others cannot. One of the most famous cases emerged in the early 1990s in Taos, New Mexico. At first, the reports seemed isolated. Residents described hearing a faint but persistent low-frequency hum throughout the quiet mountain town. Many initially assumed the sound came from machinery, distant traffic, or electrical equipment, but the complaints continued, and as more residents came forward, investigators realised they were all describing something remarkably similar. For some people, the sound became unbearable. Witnesses described sleepless nights, headaches, anxiety, nausea, and a growing sense of frustration. One resident wrote publicly about the hum after reaching a breaking point, describing how the sound disrupted both sleep and daily life. Her letter triggered an avalanche of responses from others who had been hearing the same thing, but had remained silent out of fear of ridicule. This is where the mystery deepens. Because Taos wasn't an industrial city, it was a relatively quiet desert community surrounded by mountains. There were no obvious factories, no massive highways, no clear source for a persistent, low-frequency vibration. Yet enough residents reported the phenomenon that government officials eventually launched a formal investigation. Scientists from Los Alamos National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratories, the University of New Mexico, and other agencies arrived in Taos with sophisticated acoustic and seismic monitoring equipment. They tested for electromagnetic signals, underground vibrations, industrial noise, and environmental interference. And after all of it, they found nothing. No consistent sound source, no measurable acoustic signal, no definitive explanation. The official conclusion of the investigation reportedly ended with a simple statement: "We are left with a mystery." And Taos wasn't alone. Similar reports had already surfaced decades earlier in Bristol, England. In the 1970s, hundreds of residents complained about a persistent droning sound that kept them awake at night. Some blamed factories operating around the clock. Others suspected electrical infrastructure or traffic noise. But despite investigations, no single explanation satisfied every case. Over time, reports of the hum began appearing across the world. Largs, Scotland, Windsor, Ontario, Auckland, New Zealand, Leeds, England. And one of the most persistent modern cases emerged in Bondi, Australia. Residents of the coastal suburb near Sydney described hearing a constant low-frequency buzzing that became especially noticeable late at night. Some people said the sound drove them to the point of exhaustion. Others claimed they had to leave fans running or play music constantly just to drown it out. And just like Taos, the experience seemed strangely selective. Some residents were deeply affected, while others heard nothing at all. And this is where the pattern becomes difficult to ignore, because the hum behaves similarly almost everywhere it appears. It's usually heard indoors. It becomes more noticeable at night. It's often reported in quieter suburban or rural environments. And in many cases, investigators fail to find a definitive source. Of course, that hasn't stopped theories from emerging. Some researchers believe at least certain hum cases are caused by industrial machinery, ventilation systems, compressors, or distant traffic vibrations. In Kokomo, Indiana, investigators eventually traced part of the hum to industrial equipment at nearby facilities. But even after modifications were made, some residents insisted the sound remained. Other scientists suspect environmental causes. One theory involves microseisms, tiny vibrations generated by ocean waves interacting deep beneath the Earth's surface. These low-frequency vibrations may travel long distances and, under certain conditions, become detectable to sensitive individuals. Another possibility involves infrasound, frequencies so low they are often felt more than heard. And here is where things become even stranger, because there is evidence that low-frequency sound can affect the human body in unusual ways. Studies suggest certain frequencies may contribute to anxiety, discomfort, dizziness, sleep disruption, or a general sense of unease. Some researchers believe the hum may not always be a sound in the traditional sense, but a physical sensation interpreted by the brain as sound. Others believe the explanation may be internal rather than external. Medical experts often point to tinnitus, a condition involving phantom sounds heard without an external source. But many hum hearers reject this explanation completely. In numerous investigations, people reporting the hum showed no signs of traditional tinnitus and often had otherwise normal hearing. And to an extent, that's why the mystery refuses to go away, because every explanation seems to account for part of the phenomenon, but never all of it. Industrial noise explains some cases. Environmental vibrations explain others. Psychological and medical theories explain certain symptoms, but none fully explain why the hum appears in specific locations, affects only certain individuals, and sometimes vanishes without warning. And in some places, the sound simply disappears. The famous Bristol hum eventually faded. Other hum zones remain active for years before suddenly going quiet again. In some communities, the reports come and go unpredictably, almost as if the phenomenon itself shifts over time. That uncertainty has allowed more unusual theories to emerge. Some people believe the hum is connected to secret military communications, underground infrastructure, or experimental technology. Others speculate about electromagnetic frequencies, geological activity, or even unidentified aerial phenomena. And while many of these ideas drift into speculation, they persist because no universally accepted explanation has ever fully solved the mystery, which makes the story unsettling in a different way. Because unlike many mysteries, the hum doesn't rely on blurry photographs or distant sightings. It's personal. For the people who hear it, the experience feels undeniably real. Many describe becoming obsessed with locating the source, only to discover that no one around them can hear what they hear. Over time, the frustration itself becomes part of the phenomenon, and perhaps that's why the hum continues to fascinate people around the world. Because even after decades of investigations, scientific studies, and competing explanations, there are still places where people wake up in the middle of the night hearing a sound no one else can hear. So what is the hum? a misunderstood combination of industrial noise and human perception, a rare sensitivity to environmental vibrations most people never notice, or is it evidence of something more sinister? Still, it could be simply a phenomenon we don't fully understand. Whatever the answer may be, for thousands of people around the world, the sound never truly goes away. And sometimes the strangest mysteries aren't hidden in ancient ruins, or in an unexplained noise or sighting. Sometimes the mystery lies in documents and records hidden from the public eye.